Are you all sitting comfortably square on your body? Well, then we'll begin.
Hey, music fans, welcome to Soundlab Studios. I'm back for another album review today with Jason and Nick.
Hey.
How you guys
Album.
doing?
Ogden's Knock on Flake.
Yes, Nick, I know you love this album. This album was brought to us by Nick. Would you like to go ahead and introduce the album to us?
Okay. Ogden's Knock on Flake. This is an album done by the Small Faces. If whoever did watch Soundlab's video of top albums of 1968, this was on there. It was either number one or number two. I think number one was the Preservation Society album, which we will eventually get to recording that one. But
yeah,
on this album, it's just a fantastic record. They started off as a mod group, kind of like the Who did in '66. They recorded an album full of mostly covers and just songs that were written for them, kind of like normal for different bands at the times. And then like the next album, which they ended up switching to Immediate Records, because their record producer were not either producer or manager, or just I think the CEO or whoever's in charge of Decca Records, same record label as the Rolling Stones, and they're like, we don't want you to be an albums band, we want you to be a singles band. And they're like, we don't want to do that, we're more concerned about the albums. And I don't have it on me right now, but they switched the Immediate, then they recorded the self-titled album, which is all originals, which that's another album I recommend to anyone interested in the Small Faces.
They are but four Small Faces.
Or yep, that's the US version. But if you're this was basically their Sgt. Pepper. This was like them branching out into psychedelia and just them going experimental. Very, very different from what the Beatles did. Basically just different in general. This is like the most different British Invasion psychedelic album I've ever listened to, and that's one of the main reasons why it will always be like a top 10 album for me.
Without spoiling anything, I can honestly say that I have never heard an album like this, and I probably will never hear another album like this again. This is a one-of-a-kind album right here.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever see an album cover like this.
No.
Like, oh, here, can you unfold it and show them all the goodies you get inside?
You don't really get anything, but
there's like a bunch of pictures in there.
Yeah. But mine mostly fell apart because it's like
it's over 50 years old.
You kind of expect that from a British Invasion like thing like this. And a lot of record store owners hated this album cover because it would fall off their shelf or it would just break, and it was just unpleasant for them. So they ended up every reissue now just uses like a generic, like regular, like this, for example, but like with the album cover.
Is that the Doors?
Yeah, Doors, but like it would kind of be like this. It would just be like a blank white cover.
Okay.
With this album cover pasted on there. Not like
I've looked in the 70s, in the US at least, they used the same circle, but they put it in this red thing that looks like an album cover, that you can like set it up like an album cover, but then you take the circle out and it's just the circle.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and then like that's probably the copy I think would be best to get, because it won't fall over and you can take it out and it's the circle.
Yeah, not that, but you don't have to spend over $100 on it.
Yes. Yeah, you got
it's supposed to look like a tobacco can.
I think so, actually, because it says tobacco on the very bottom right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, band members, by the way, Steve Marriott, which one of the best rock vocalists of all times. Ronnie Lane, Pete Townsend really liked him. He was on one of his solo albums. Mick Jones, what's I always forget the drummer's name because
Kenny Jones.
Kenny Jones.
He's the one. He's the one I remember.
It's ironic because that's the one I don't remember. He's the one. He's the member that ends up going with the Who after Keith Moon dies. And
man, he reminds me of Keith Moon. So that's funny.
Yeah. After listening to this, like I can totally see why they picked him because.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Pete Townsend in general really liked the Small Faces. He was a big fan of theirs, which that's shocking coming from Pete Townsend because even he hated everything, including the Who stuff, a lot too. So for Pete Townsend to be like, yeah, I like this stuff.
Right.
And, you got to be a really good band for Pete Townsend to say he likes it. And their keyboardist Ian McGuigan, he does a few lead vocals, like a couple, I think, tracks 3 and 5, I believe, are Ian McGuigan singing it, but I could be wrong. But I will go over that when we do review the album. But it's just amazing what I feel like. Well, of course, the Beach Boys brought it on, like the creativeness, and then the Beatles kind of expanded that, and then every other band just kind of did it with them, like the Who, Kinks.
Yeah,
Small Faces. It's just amazing what music came out around this time. The Hollies with Butterfly. It's crazy just to think about it.
Yeah, especially thinking that like the Beatles were in Abbey Road Studios making Sgt. Pepper, and like several other bands were in there around like the same time. Like I know like the Hollies were recording their Evolution album. Pink Floyd was making their first album. Just a few months later, the Zombies were in there making Odessey and Oracle.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
Jimi Hendrix is probably doing something around this time. I'm not sure, but
yeah, like with Are You Experience and Access Bold as Love.
Yeah,
those are albums we should review at some point.
Yes, I listened to the first album, and that's definitely something we should review. But
yeah,
I think it should be pointed out before we begin that this was released in 1968. So that means that there is a mono and a stereo version in the UK. In the US, it was stereo only because by 68, mono had been phased out in the US, other than like very few albums. And honestly, I think that was a good call because the stereo version is definitely my preference. Because we were talking about Kenny Jones earlier and his incredible drumming. What they do in the stereo version with his drums, it like circles around your head, especially when he goes down the drum kit. Like you can like follow it with your ears. Anyway,
it's a great album to listen to on headphones for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. What do you say this? I thought this was like their last album or something.
It's their last really this is like their last masterpiece because they would go on to release 2 other albums like reunion albums, and I'm like, yeah, they're all right.
Because they kind of went off and had different band names, didn't they?
Yeah, Rod
Stewart, they had the
Faces, I think, became the
they became the Faces, and Steve Marriott would go on to form a band called Humble Pie, I think, with Peter Frampton.
Right, yeah.
You know what's crazy is that he wanted Peter Frampton to be on the Small Faces, but everyone else didn't want him to be on the Small Faces, and that kind of got Steve really mad at them. He's like, I want Frampton. I don't like my guitar playing. I really love Marriott's guitar playing. I wouldn't consider him up there with like Steven Stills or anything, but he's really underrated in terms of guitar playing, though.
Yeah,
I like how you use Steven Stills as like the standard for guitar, because we were talking about how underrated he was last time.
Right.
Yeah,
and this is where I throw the title card up. Right there, Crosby, Stills, and Nash album review.
Yep, that's good. That's good. But yeah, well, let's get this album review done. First track, Ogden's Nuck on Flake, the title track.
What a great name!
I think this is going to be really weird. It's actually Ogden's.
Ogden's. I always call it. Ogden's.
It's really weird. I had to look at it a few times, but it is Ogden's.
Yeah, it always messes with my brain, the name of it. But yeah, the title track. What do you guys think of it?
It's a weird and experimental instrumental piece, and definitely sets the tone for the album. And I think it's really good. Obviously, Kenny Jones is the star here with his incredible drumming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? Okay.
Well, I'm not usually a fan of just all instrumental tracks, so I was a little bit disappointed when it first started, and I was like, "Oh, is there any singing in this album?" And luckily there was, but in later songs. But I mean, yeah, it's a decent, psychedelic, I guess, track. Yeah.
I really love it. When I first was going through their discography, because I knew they were British, because I found out they were British Invasion, and it's just like, well, it's weird that you guys got into this album first, because I kind of like
Yeah.
I just kind of like I like slowly like got like flowed by, like I slowly like got myself into this one, but you guys just on jump, you just got straight into it, and I'm like, that's crazy, because
Yeah.
I was starting to hear their sound, but then when I heard this song, I'm like, wow, like how is this the first time I'm ever hearing this album? And their second album has real like a lot of great pop songs and stuff, but like this is like their first like really song that you're just like mind blown about. Like this, well, they had Green Circles, which if we ever do get to that album, that kind of is a little psychedelic, and but this song is just like, bam,
Yeah.
right in the face, like. And I can't imagine just starting off with this album right away. I like even just getting into it is just mind blowing. But like just hearing the small phases and like this being like kind of like your first impression of them. Well,
Right.
they did have Tin Soldier and Ichigo Park, but I don't know if you guys know that song, those two songs, but those are like their most well known songs. It's like maybe if you hear them you would recognize it, but yeah, if this is your first song you ever heard of them, bravo.
Yeah, this was the first song I had heard of them and was my introduction to them.
Yeah. I'm guessing this is
It's
different than their other albums.
a lot different.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Even compared to their last album that they like their second self-titled album, like you'll hear how crazy psychedelic this album is and how different it is, and then you listen to the last album, you're just like, I mean, this is great, but like, well, I find it to be a masterpiece, but
No, the
as
other
well, but
album is more just a straightforward rock album. This is very
yeah,
That's what I thought.
experimental and even um when I was listening to this album, when I was listening to the last song, this may be jumping ahead a little bit, but I said, like, what were they on when they made this album? And then I paused and I went, no, it's not a matter of what were they on, it's how much of it were they on when they made this album. Because like when I got to the last song, because it was the second time I listened to the album. Like the first time I was like, wow, this is kind of weird, but then like listening to it this time, it was like something's going on here. It's definitely there was definitely some drugs being used during the making of this album.
with the Beatles with Sgt. Pepper's, you could get an idea that there's drugs involved, but like this album, you know, damn well,
Without a shadow of a doubt.
like like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and Within You Without
Right.
You, and
Yeah,
I forgot, there's another
Day
song
in the
that's like
Life.
that, but like this whole album like just feels like they were just like, it's not like the Beatles where they were, I feel like they were taking drugs then recording songs. I felt like they were singing it while they were taking the drugs.
No, that they said that they weren't going to take drugs while they were in the studio, but there may have been something actually going on during the recording with
Who
this album.
knows? We may never know.
Anyway, that's just the first track. Let's move on to the
Yeah.
next one.
Okay, next track, The Afterglow parentheses of Your Love.
Yeah, this track is pretty cool. I definitely like the vocals on this one, like just kind of raw, powerful, very punchy. Like most of the songs on this first side, I'm gonna say are very like punchy rock with like some experimental instrumental accompaniment behind it. With the exception of one song, which we'll get to later.
Mm-hmm.
This, I mean, if I can say it right now, this is my favorite song on the album.
Good choice.
It's, to me, has the best chorus, most catchy kind of chorus that really clung on to. Like I said, vocals probably the best vocal work maybe on the album. But yeah, it's maybe the most commercial song on the album, because there are a lot of, strange songs aren't really songs that you could probably play on the radio. But I could see this one played on the radio kind of. because it does have that kind of more rock pop hit like sound to it, and it sounds really good. I'd love to hear more of this, to be honest. Hopefully they got more songs like this, maybe.
Oh yeah, if you get into their second album, that it's less psychedelic. It's just
Yeah,
Garrett said it perfectly. It's like it's not like generic like rock songs like A Hard Day's Night. It's like
right.
a mix between Rubber Soul / Revolver by the
Yeah,
Beatles / what's a
I
good
would
other
say
album?
like most of the songs on that album sound a lot like Afterglow, but without the experimental tendencies. That's probably
Yeah,
the way I would describe it.
yeah. I feel like you like the second album better, which we'll definitely be getting to that album
The
soon
next
enough.
album we will review by then. We'll review There Are But Four Small Faces sometime on the channel.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one that has their two biggest hits on it. But I love Afterglow. I love how the song begins where it has like a weird vocal that Steve Mary does is like
yeah. Going at the beginning.
Yeah.
oh no, it's just resting in the afterglow. I always thought that was unique. When I first heard that, I'm like, is this Marriott? Is this C Marriott? I looked it up and I'm like, that is Steve Marriott. I'm like, wow, really versatile on the vocals. And fun fact, if any Zeppelin fans who are gonna be watching this video, they actually offered Marriott the lead vocals on the band, but he denied it. And then they ended up going with Robert playing, which he was a huge Small Faces fan. So, he ended up taking that role and then, became the famous Zeppelin singer. But
And we
yeah,
all know how that turned out.
of course. It's actually better off because
Yeah.
he would end up being in Humble Pie and then Led Zeppelin became their thing. And yeah, but we're gonna be doing Led Zeppelin 1 eventually, but
Yes.
yeah, like I said, Mary absolutely rocks it with the vocals on this song. You can tell like all of his passion and love for just music in general. Just you can just hear it just exploding and when he's singing the chorus, just resting in your afterglow. I'm just like, oh my god. When I first heard this song, I'm like, wow, it couldn't get better than this. A 1-2 punch with a great instrumental track followed up by this, and then of course the rest of the album, but you get the idea.
Mhm. Any other general thoughts or any non-general deep thoughts, like just anything else about this song? All right,
No.
then we continue.
Mhm.
Track 3, Long Ago's and Worlds Apart.
This one is the Ian McLagan track. He wrote it and sung it. I think he's a really great vocalist. No Marriott, but he comes really close sometimes. And this is either my favorite or my second favorite. There's the one that's kind of close is the one from their second album, Up the Wooden Hills to Bedfordshire. That
Oh
I love
yeah.
that track. That's like tied those two tracks that Ian McLagan writes and sings. But I love it a lot. This what I first just and each song just kind of goes into each other. The first three tracks almost, and it's just perfect. I just really like this track.
I like this track, but not as much as Afterglow.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I don't remember a lot about this track. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I just don't remember. It felt like it was a track that was almost more instrumental or something. Am I right?
Yeah, kind of like towards the end is like they're just kind of like do I help me hope
Oh yeah, that one.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember too much about it, so I can't say too much.
Yeah.
All right. Track 4.
Oh, she's really the darkest delight. This is a funny track.
This is kind of I'd like to say it's the comic relief, but like the entirety of the second side is supposed to be
Yeah.
like humorous. But honestly, it's kind of my least favorite song on the album. It's a lot different than anything else on the album. And I don't know, very stylistically different.
It's just the whole. I always loved it because I always loved it because of how different it is and how British sounding, and
Very British.
this song
Very
is not
British.
this whole album is just like them being like, yeah, don't take us too seriously. But it's I forgot what else. Oh yeah, it's like Love You by the Beach Boys. It's like it's not an album you really take too seriously.
Yeah,
See, same with
that's
the stuff, which I consider my favorite album of all time. Like the album cover too, like with the Roger Daltrey and a bath full of baked beans. That's
yeah.
just Reenie though. Just the song is like the darkest delight. Reenie, the darkest delight. I'm just like every time I listen to it, I get a good laugh, and even when I'm in a bad mood, I just put the song on, and I'm always instantly in a good mood because of how fun it is. Just a fun song to listen to.
Yeah, even though the end of the song is kind of dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, the word that I came with is whimsical is the best
That's
way.
a good word for it.
Okay. I was like, it felt like Monty Python or something.
Yeah.
And this, I feel for me, this and like Lazy Sunday were like, this whole album is like the most British album I feel like I've listened to.
Oh, get ready for Village Green
Renee,
Preservation Society then.
Yeah. Same with Something Else by the Kinks, which you haven't listened to yet, Garrett. Same with actually their first three like best albums, Face to Face, Something Else, and Village Green, and actually even Arthur too. Like those four albums are just so British sounding, and it's just crazy. The Kinks are a very British sounding group.
okay. Just like Renee and the Lazy Sunday, you can really hear their accents or something. It was something interesting where I'm like, wow, you can really tell it's British. I listen to the Beatles, you don't always hear the Britishness except for I feel like early George Harrison, you can really hear the British accent out of him. But yeah, it's definitely kind of interesting song, Renee. Yeah, like I said, just not something I expected.
That's actually Reenie. The dog is
Greeny? Okay.
It's Reenie. The dog.
Reenie.
And like, I don't know, especially like the Rolling Stones, I can't tell they're British. Like they sound
Rolling
like
Stones.
an American band.
When I found out that there were UK British
yeah.
Asian artists, I'm like, they're British? Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, this one and the next song, Lazy Sunday Afternoon.
Song of a
Oh,
song.
I skipped it.
There's wheat in the fields. It's the second and last Ian McGuigan written / sung track on the album. It's great, but to me, it's not as good as his other two tracks that he wrote and sung for the band for their albums. But
I actually liked it better than his other song on the album.
Okay.
Like this one really rocks.
I do like the vocal harmonies on the chorus. I can't I can't sing it because I don't really know the lyrics. I just know that they have really like the harmonies, or either harmonies or just Mary just rocking on the vocals as usual.
Yeah.
Yeah, what impressed me is the drumming. Like I said, I think the highlight of the whole album to me is the drumming is just absolutely fantastic. I was like listening, and I was like, wow, this sounds like Keith Moon or Ginger Baker or something. Like he's so fast. I mean, it's just like you said, like he's like all over the place with like these guitar with these drum fills or whatever. And man, it is fast. And I was like, wow, I don't know who this guy is, but he's pretty good drummer. Also, the guitar at the end is really great. Some of the best guitar work on the album. Kind of comes somewhat towards the end of the song, I feel like, where it's a very psychedelic guitar sound and it sounds really great.
Yes. Definitely, like, I don't know, I actually think this is one of my favorite songs on this album, even though I almost skipped it. But my favorite song on this side of the album is our next song, Lazy Sunday Afternoon.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Fun fact, Lazy Sunday was released as a single with none of the band members' permission or knowledge. It went to number 2, and they were like, "Okay, I guess that'll work." Like they had no idea. Like they heard the song on the radio. It's like that it's number 2, and they're like, "This is released as a single and went to number 2." Okay, like they
The
weren't complaining.
unintentional hit.
Yeah, like they just wrote the song for the album. They didn't think of it as a hit. They just intended it as an album cut. And I guess one of the producers or managers really liked it, and they're like, let's just make it a single, and became a number 2 hit. The album went in the UK went to number 1. So
Oh wow.
yeah,
I was gonna say it did nothing in the United States, and I was wondering, did they have a hit in the United States? Was it all UK?
Itchy Park. That's their closest. That's like their
Okay.
biggest song.
It sounded like they didn't really make it in the United States from what I read. It was mainly a UK thing or something.
Yeah, them and the Kinks, like them and the Kinks,
Mm,
like
yeah.
they were kind of they were both big in the UK, but in the United States they were just kind of nothing.
Yeah.
And that maybe the same I could say for the Hollies too. Like they were somewhat big in the UK, but like in the US they were just kind of like just secondary Beatle members, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Part of that British invasion that came in.
Yep. They weren't like the Rolling Stones or anything. We'll just
Right.
say that.
Yeah. I think Jason really hit the nail on the head with this one, saying that it's like one of the most British songs ever. Especially the part where he's purposefully doing a big accent where he goes like, a rooty tooty too, a rotty dog badaya.
Okay. My favorite part is it was like, what is it my noise to get home with me neighbors?
Yeah, that was just
I love
Make it very clear they've got no room for ravers. They're just like laughing, like just screaming and laughing. I'm just like when I first heard the song, this was like before I heard the album. Like I saw that this was the big hit on the album. I'm like okay, Lazy Sunday. And this was like when I knew Shalalali, Green Circles, and like stuff before this album. And then I heard the song. I'm like, what the hell is this? And like I gotta listen to the full album. And then like I heard the full album and like, wow, this is like the most British thing I've ever heard.
Yes.
Even
Yeah, that first line, like I think you said there, I love something about the neighbors, and I was like, wow, that's so great. Like so British.
Garrett said about the second side because I don't know if you were there on the reactions to the classic when I did the whole album, like the whole second side, and like Garrett's like, I'm laughing right now. And then, like towards the end, he was like, this is like the most British thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I'm like, you basically said what I said when I first heard this album.
It's pretty much
Lazy. I feel like they went to a pub and got drunk and then started singing the song or something. It's such a fun song.
I feel like they didn't have enough room on side 1, like at side 2 with the happiness stand thing, and then they're like, it's like we don't have another track, and then they're like, we'll decide tomorrow, and then like they drank a lot, and then Ronnie Lade and Steve Mary were like, we got an idea. And then like Steve Mary just go to the studio. It's like, what did the noise to get on with me neighbor, and then just recorded that track. Or like they sung it, and then like the manager or producer was like, okay, we got that. Like they were just like bullshitting around, and then they were just like, okay, we got it. It was like, that wasn't supposed to be a song. Well, it is now. Like
they're like, well, why is this the one that's gonna? Why is this the one on the charts right now?
Yeah, they were wondering that. They're like, how did this went to number 2? And they weren't complaining though. It wasn't like the Monkees where they hated it. Like they loved the fact that it went to number 2 because that just meant more money for them.
More money, more money. Only Nick will know what that's from.
Money. Is it funny in a rich man's world?
ABBA.
That was side 2 though. I mean, side 1.
Definitely my favorite song on side 1, and probably my second favorite song on the album.
Yeah, we haven't even reached my favorite song on the album yet.
Just thought of a horrible mashup. Wouldn't it be nice to get on with me neighbor?
Oh man,
wouldn't it be nice
to get to me neighbors? My favorite part of that song is probably the part where he's like, close my mind and drift away, and it's just like the ending of the song with the instrumental, and you just hear the animals in the background. That to me is like I'm like, this is like the song before all the madness happens with the happiness stand and all that.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. I'm like, oh, here's the song before, here's the part before the madness starts. And then of course, side 2 opens up with happiness stand. What do you
So
guys
I
think of that?
don't know if everyone's aware. They probably are, but just to make sure, this whole second side of the album is kind of like a continual story talking about like I don't even know, something about like the moon. I'm trying to find the other half of the moon, but like it's
Yeah.
just because the moon, the way the light
Eclipse thing.
goes, yeah,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
and it involves lots and lots of drugs.
Yep.
And
One
something about
track kind of implies it, but we'll get to that track.
Something about hovery, hovery, hovery.
Hover. Oh yeah, and a British comedian. I always forget the name of him. I'm gonna look it up so you music fans could get knowledge on that.
they wanted Spike Mulligan, but he wouldn't do it or something.
Yes, and then they went with the second best option, which
I don't think like just anybody would do that though.
Stanley Unwin is the name.
Stanley.
He was a British comedian, and he does all the narration. I love it at some points. Like most of the time, I always skip the narration to the actual songs, but sometimes when I feel like it, I listen to the whole thing. But Happiness Stand, it starts off as like a whimsical kind of song, and then it just gets really heavy, and I always love that. And that's probably my third favorite track on the album. Just like how it goes from once upon a time in the land of dreams.
And it gets
then
to that
it's
weird
like,
part in the middle with like the tremolo on the voice.
yeah, my favorite part is when the drums like, and then just that's like the transition to like all the madness and then the vocal effect. It was like the half the moon is away, and then like the instrumental comes on, and then the narration comes back, and yeah. But like, what do you guys think of this song though?
It's something that has to be experienced. Like everything we're talking about, especially with this full album. Like if you guys have never heard this album, you cannot understand what we're talking about unless you've heard it. It's gonna sound really weird what we're talking about unless you actually hear this album because it's a unique experience. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Did anybody else, when the narrator like speaks, at first was like, is this guy speaking English? Because I'm not understanding anything he's saying.
I was thinking that. I'm like,
he's speaking a weird language. He's speaking Stan's language, whatever that is.
Like,
yeah,
I don't know if it's English slang or what, but I was listening, going, I know this guy's speaking English, but I'm not understanding what's going on. And he's narrating.
You know what's funny is when I first heard this album, I first heard the first side, and then when I got to the second side and I heard the narration, I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, what is he saying? Hover. What the heck? It's like that scene from Bohemian Rhapsody. It's like Bismillah.
What is Bismillah mean?
What is Bismillah? That's kind of like how I think of this second side. Is like hover. What the heck am I listening to?
Yeah, or like when the fly comes down and there's like some kind of all the flies was one, then something.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, next track, my favorite track on the album.
Oh, mine too. Yeah, this is the hardest rocking song on the album.
I said this is the one song that sounded like a song on the second side. I was like, I kind of like this.
Yeah,
this is like the most Small Faces sounding Small Faces song, which you might be like, oh, of course the Small Faces are gonna sound like Small Faces, but like if you listen to their first and second album, then you'll know what I mean. Like when I say that, like, yeah, this is like their most Small Faces sounding Small Faces record or song, because the rest of the songs don't sound like them. It just sounds like them being experimental and stuff. And this is like this and maybe like kind of Afterglow is like them being the Small Faces. The rest of the tracks is just them branching into new territory, which I respect that. I always like when bands try to sound different.
And Kenny Jones is killing it on the drums on this song.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the MVP to me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is the best song on the album.
Yeah,
I'd say this is the best song on this side for me. Yeah, on the second side. Yeah.
awesome. Next song, The Hungry Intruder.
Okay. What an interesting. What's going on?
Okay,
He's
so
talking to a fly.
in the story, I've only listened to this thing twice. From what I can understand, with all the weird English slang and stuff going on, Stan is on his way to see. I gotta look the name up. Mad John, who's the
Mojo.
one who knows what happened to the moon. And on his way, he meets a giant fly that tries to eat his shepherd's pie. Is that what
Yeah.
happens?
Here am I, time
Yeah.
fly,
Fly is
may
hungry.
I share your shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
This was actually the first song on the album that was sung by Ronnie Lane, the co-writer with Steve Marriott, and
Okay.
I find him to be a really underrated singer. He sung a lot of tracks on their second album. That's like the most songs he sings on any Small Faces records in the first three, and he only sings two in this album, I believe. And the next song is also sung and written by him. And I always thought it was interesting the way he sings in, and the part where it was like, "My name is Stan. I am on a quest." That's Steve Marriott, and the fly is supposed to be Steve Marriott. I mean, Ronnie Lane. That's what I meant.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. This is my second favorite song on this side, just because of how ridiculous it is. Like
I was gonna say it's
this is where the narration gets really hard to understand, especially like towards the end where it's like the fly. I don't even know. Like, are they a bunch of little flies that become a giant fly, or is he mustering up the strength of 1,000 little flies, even though he's a giant fly, and then he like kisses them and gives him a hug at the end or something, and there's like a sound. I'm like, again, how many drugs were you using when you made this album?
I've listened to this album at like over 10 times, like a bunch of times, and I still don't understand fully what the narrator says. So
Okay,
if I don't get it after listening to it like millions of times, don't expect yourself to get it through the second try. Trust me. It gets to a point where you're just like, I'm just gonna listen to it. I'm not gonna it feels like sometimes when you try really, really hard to understand something, it ends up ruining the magic of the album. So
yeah,
I'm just like, I'm just gonna listen to this guy gibber in an English accent, and I'm just gonna enjoy it.
and
I find this is the weirdest part of the whole story, like you said, and because even the whole story is like, oh, he can't see the whole moon, so he's afraid like half the moon's gone, so he's gonna go somehow search for it. I don't know. It's already a strange story, but I'm like, okay, I'm on board. And then it gets to this part, and I'm like, okay, I'm really confused, like about this whole fly thing, talking to him. I was like, who came up with this idea?
I'm laughing probably because this is like all my thoughts when I first heard this record. I'm just like, what the hell is this? Half of the moon, fly, Mad John, Hovery.
is this the one where the Hovery comes in?
Either this song or the next song is just like, I'm just like, what the hell is going on? I had to listen to this side like 3 or 4 times to fully like grasp it. And of course, every listen I enjoyed it more and more, like the actual music part. But like every time I get to the narration section, I'm just like, what the hell is this? Even now, I'm still like that. I'm like, what is this? Like, I'm like with Jason, like first, like we have a story about the half moon, then this fly comes in, and then the narrator's just like, I'm just like, oh boy.
He needs to get to Matt John. Someone told him about Matt John, I think, or something. I can't remember. But he needs to get I don't know if Matt John, doesn't he live like in a cave or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think he does.
And so I don't know, it's hard to get there. So the fly is going to, he's riding on the fly, I think, right? The fly is taking him there.
I think that's the journey when that song comes in, which is the next one we'll be talking about.
Oh, okay. And that's how he gets there. I don't know. I was like, how does that work? I don't know.
You want a song that sounds the most like Drugs, The Journey, especially with Ronnie Lane on the vocal effect. If tomorrow was today, it would be yesterday. I'm just like, like this is what I mean. Like when I think like instead of like taking drugs before, they were just taking LSD while they were just singing the track, and they were just coming up with stuff at that point.
Here's what I was gonna say, and it applies to the Beatles' Yellow Submarine movie as well, which I've seen. If you're a kid, it just seems extremely it would just seem extremely fantastical. If you're an adult, it's drugs.
Yep.
Yeah, that's some crazy stuff in that movie for sure.
You know that crazy scene where there was like a bunch of monsters and stuff, and Ringo ends up being launched out of the submarine.
Yeah,
This is the song I could imagine being like if the Small Faces were like in the Beatles movie. This is like a song that I can imagine them playing like in that land, like just that like if tomorrow was today, it would be yesterday, or whatever the lyric is.
Just a side note, like I'm one of the biggest Beatles fans you'll ever meet, but I do not like the Yellow Submarine movie. I was so
Really?
disappointed when I watched that.
Really, I think it's their second best movie besides
Well,
Hard Day.
I was extremely disappointed that they're imitators doing their voices, and you only get to see them at the very end as like a cameo. That was a big disappointment. Also, like the storyline is weird. You can tell that I don't think they had anything to do with it. Whoever wrote it is just like the Beatles were doing drugs. Let's get on drugs and make a weird story about the Yellow Submarine. And then also like half the songs on that album are just rejects from Sgt. Pepper's that like should have stayed as rejects. Like only a Northern song. I don't like that. And now
I love that song.
Hey Bulldog is a great song, but apparently it wasn't even in the movie originally, and It's All Too Much is pretty good, but like
that's a good
everything
song.
else has been on
Altogether now.
What is Altogether now? Why is this anyway? That's my rant about Yellow Submarine.
That was a childhood favorite, but
that's the thing. I never watched it when I was a kid, so like if I don't know what kind of perspective a kid would get listening to this Small Faces album about Happiness Stand Looking for the Moon.
That's a good question.
They might think of it as like
if they did a kind of Yellow Submarine-ish movie about this with the Small Faces, like that movie, like the nature of that movie just like fits perfectly more with the Small Faces than it does with the Beatles. Like especially songs like The Journey, Happiness Stand, Hungry Shooter, like those songs in that, like I could imagine like the animation of that movie and like the story of the half of the moon being involved with the Small Faces, like that would have worked out better. But of course, not many people were Small Faces fans, so that movie was sold poorly.
A Hard Day's Night was a lot better, in my opinion.
I love A Hard Day's Night. That's my favorite one of their.
Yeah, that's.
Although I haven't seen the Let It Be movie. I wanted to because like I'm like it's the Beatles in the studio, but then I heard like of how like it hasn't been released on home media for like a reason because of how like depressing it is. And watching the Get Back documentary was good enough for me.
Oh yeah, the Let It Be movie, very depressing to look. They look like they all wanted to kill each other.
And I apparently, now that I've seen the Peter Jackson footage, like it was just an editorial decision because the Beatles had just broken up and they wanted to be like, oh, you get to watch the Beatles breaking up in the studio. So they purposefully chose all like the worst clips.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, what do you guys think about The Journey though? I think you guys already said what you had to say, right?
It's a journey.
It has more of a funky sound to it, I thought. For a funky
beat looked like it with the keyboards.
Yeah, it sounded a little bit different than everything else. It definitely wasn't my favorite on the album. One of the weaker tracks, but
it grew on me significantly throughout the many listens of this album. So
I like Mad John.
Oh yeah, that's the next song. I love it. One of my. What do you think about it? Like,
it's a great introduction to this character.
Yeah.
Very descriptive because it's like talking about like his beard like flowing around or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a crazy man, but he's supposed to be, I guess, wise. I don't know.
But the wise old / crazy man in like every fantasy movie. Like in Monty
might-
Python and the Holy Grail, you got that guy who like just randomly pops up and it's like, if you want to cross my bridge of death, you must answer me these questions 3. What is your name? What is your quest? What is your favorite color? Like it kind of reminds me of that guy.
I guess it reminds me of like the song "The Fool on the Hill" by the Beatles.
Yeah.
Like guy that everybody thinks is kind of this crazy guy, but he's actually maybe not that crazy, and
And they're the fool.
and they're the fool. Yeah, at the end, I don't know. That's what I thought of, but it was interesting. Yeah, Mad John.
Mad John.
Mud John. And when Stan says, I'm looking for the other half of the moon in Tangley. Or whatever they say.
I think you said it perfectly. That was great.
That was good.
But last song.
Stan was so happy to get up on his cheap chop chop, and he would fly away with the flip flop fly into the Mimi Mon Moon. That's
Oh
what
my
it sounds.
gosh.
That's what it sounds like.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
repeat after me with this
Perfectly
magical
sums
phrase:
it
if
up.
all the flies were flying in the fly sky, then all the moon be bing and binging bong dangly, and look, there be the moon. That's
Yeah.
what it sounds like.
This
He kept saying
is
dangly.
like,
I remember that.
this is like my top 5 favorite albums of all time, but like you're perfectly doing it. But last track on the album, Happy Days Toy Town.
Yeah, this
with a
is the
smile.
this is the weirdest song on the album. This is
Yeah.
there's definitely some drugs going on with this one, and like the weird narration I was doing earlier is especially like weird in this part because he's like telling them like because they don't even realize that the moon is just an eclipse. Like he tells them that like the moon like just if you see it halfway, just like say the magic phrase whatever, and it'll come back in a few days or something like that. And then like I don't even get what this song is at the end. They're just like, yay, it's Happy Days Toy Town. And
Illusion.
then, like the narrator is like, and then there came this person, and it's like the weirdest names ever. And there was a Jippy Jump Joy Day or something like that. And I'm like, that's whenever I said literally out loud, okay, I take that back. It's not what were you on, it's how much of it were you on when you made this album, because like this was insane.
Yeah. Life is just a bowl of old bran.
Yeah.
Like, I first heard that, I'm just like, what the heck am I listening to? When I first heard this song, like at the very end of the album, I'm just like, how do they choose this as the closer? I'm just like, this whole album is just for me, it will always be a mystery how they were able to make. I wish there was either footage or just me being there during the recording of this album, because I feel like
Yeah, I
it
wanna know
was
what
either
was going on here.
it was either, I know drugs, but like it was either them trying to like seriously trying to like try to like make like a comeback, like an answer back to Sgt. Pepper, but like doing it in their own way, or B, just them having just a jolly good time in the studio
Yeah, I
and
almost
making it.
thought it was supposed to be kind of like Tommy or something like that, but this is before Tommy.
No,
Yeah.
this is something else.
It's
Yeah.
something else.
But yeah, and then of course this is like their Dark Side of the Moon almost, because after this album it went to #1, it sold a lot of copies, not as much as Dark Side of the Moon, but or stood to #1 as long as it did. But this album kind of like broke them up, because they were like, how do we follow up to this album? Like,
Right.
Kind
how
of can't.
they it's so unique. That's why. And
Like you do it again, or you do back to what you used to do, or
yeah, they ended up releasing a single called The Universal, and it's kind of like their Smiley Smile song, because it's like completely different from what they did in the last whatever, like their last single, Lazy Sunday. It's like all stripped back. It's just Steve Marriott. He actually did the vocals at home at his own house. Like it's just like, to me, it's their Smiley Smile song of their discography.
Not a big
Universal.
fan of Smiley Smile, but you can go check that out in our Beach Boys discussion in the title card up below, or wherever that is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I thought the last song, I don't know what I thought it reminded me of like a Disney sing-along song that you would have in an old Disney movie or something, that you'd have like the bouncing ball and you'd be singing along with.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I can actually see it. Like
Just
one
follow
of
the
those, like,
bouncing ball and dangly.
all the bouncing, yeah.
like an edited version. It was like When you see the ball on the words,
All you kiddly
you
kids
sing along.
is to sing along with the bouncy ball and dang.
I can just imagine being a British kid back in like '68 and looking at this record, this album cover, and buying it, and
Hell.
just and like listening to it for the first time and just like not knowing what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose as a kid, I probably would enjoy this more, to be honest, now that you're talking about it.
Yeah.
Like imagine growing up in the UK in 1968 and like flipping through the record, like the hottest new records, like,
Yeah.
the Who Sell Out, Butterfly just came out like a little before then, they're saying
White Album.
either Beggar's Banquet or their Satanic Majesty's Request is either one of those newer Rolling Stone albums around that time. I don't know which one came between it, but that album, Sgt. Pepper's or the White Album, again, Village Green Preservation Society, all those British albums came out, and then you look at this unique album cover, and you're just like, this album cover just screams by me.
Yeah. If I saw that at a record store, like I would think, like, what is that? And I would at least want to like take it over to the listening station and be like, let's hear what's on that album. Because I remember the very first time I was introduced to this album was not by Nick. I didn't listen to it, but I was watching a video that was in like top albums everyone should own or something like that. Or like someone's personal 10 albums of all time or something like that. And they pulled it out and it was in the weird circle 10. And I'm like, what is that album? That looks like one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And then they were talking about it, and like he had compared it to Sellout with the commercials and said, but instead of commercials, there's like weird narration and it's all like a storybook thing. And I was thinking in my head, like, what is that? Like, that's one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. I don't even think I want to listen to that album. But then Nick was like, yeah, it's one of the best albums ever. And he's like, give it a try. And I gave it a try, and I'm like, yeah, that was weird, but it was like good weird. I don't know.
Yeah. But well, the first time you ever heard it was actually the second side only, because I recommended the whole second side.
But yeah, I listened to it out of order, the second side and then the first side.
Yeah, then you listen to the second side again, but yeah, you listen to the second side well, you actually at this point you listen to both sides equally, I think, unless you listen to the album more on your own. But yeah.
All right, it's time for top 5 and overall score. I just realized if we ever do Hemispheres by Rush, we can't do top 5 because there's only 4 songs on the album.
I know.
We would actually have to rank the songs at that point.
Yeah. Maybe. That's true.
Although they're 4 really good songs. Anyway, top 5 and overall score. We'll save Nick for last since this is one of his favorite albums. Jason, you can go ahead and go first.
Want me to go first?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Number 5, I'm actually going to go with Happy Days, Toy Town. I thought it was a fun song to close the album. Like I said, it reminded me of a Disney kind of sing song that I liked. Number 4, I'm going with Rolling Over. Like I said, that was my favorite off the second side. More of the rock song, I guess, or whatever. They're rocking, or they're just this Monty Python whimsical thing to them. I don't know. They're kind of going both ends. 3, I go for Lazy Sunday. Like I said, it's another fun song. Definitely that first that Neighbors that kind of gets me for some reason. Number 2, I'd go for Song of a Baker. I feel like I'm higher on this song than you guys. I guess I'll see. But it's just the drumming and the guitar at the end I really like on that song. That kind of pulls it over. And then number 1, like I said, Afterglow was definitely the most commercial song, the song with the best chorus and catchiness to it. And vocally, I think really good. Definitely, the highlight for me.
Yeah, surprised that wasn't the big hit. I'm really surprised Afterglow was the single that they chose.
Should have been.
Well, they didn't choose Lazy Sunday, but I'm surprised that wasn't like the song that they chose to
I do specifically remember whenever I listened to this album for the first time, messaging Nick as soon as Afterglow started. Wow, Steve Marriott is the man vocally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the only time he really showcases, I feel like, his vocals as much, because some of the other songs are just a little goofier or something. But
yeah, that's like if you want a good introduction to Steve Marriott, this is like this and Tin Soldier are like the two best songs I'd say for vocally for Marriott.
Mhm.
But what would you score from 1 to 10? I'm actually kind of excited to see where you would rate it.
Oh, I'm going with a 7 out of 10 on this.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's definitely an interesting album, very different than anything I've heard. Like I said, Afterglow, really good song on here. There's some good stuff like Song of the Baker. There's some fun though. I think of more of there's a funness to it, like Lazy Sunday, Rainy, whatever you said that was.
Greeny.
Rainy. In the second side, like so Happiness Stand and Happy Days Toy Town and Hungry Intruder or whatever. There's definitely some fun here. It's an interesting album that it was interesting to get to, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a great album that I like rush to go listen to again, but yeah, it was cool.
Okay, for me, number 5 is the Song of the Baker. I really like that song. I know Jason mentioned that was like really high on his list. Number 4, I'm going to go with Afterglow, another really amazing song. Number 3 is going to be Lazy Sunday Afternoon. Wait, let me make sure I did that right.
Just Lazy Sunday.
I'm trying to think in my head because I'm thinking 3 more songs. Okay, yeah. Number 3 is Lazy Sunday, so it's really amazing. Number 2 is going to be Hungry Intruder, just because of the absolute absurdity of it. I know I think maybe earlier in the song I said number 2 was going to be Lazy Sunday, but I think I switched it around. Number 1 is definitely Rolling Over. And
Rolling Over, yeah.
I'm going to score it a 7.5 out of 10.
Nice.
Right.
Okay. My top 5. So number 5, none of you guys mentioned it. I think Ogden's Gun Flake, the title track.
The title, yeah.
I love when I love instrumentals, so that's like a main reason why I put it on here. Number 4, Afterglow, absolutely fantastic track. I think I might have said 3 or 2 at one point, but now that I'm looking through the track list, it's 4. Number 3, Lazy Sunday Afternoon. Get on with me, neighbors.
We all Lazy Sunday at number 3.
Yeah.
It's a consensus that it's the third best song on the album.
Yeah, hopefully if Bryer does listen to it again, hopefully he might put it at number 3.
Yeah.
Most. But number 2, I agree. Hungry Shooter is the second best song on the album, Garrett. I agree. And then
it's so weird, but
it's weird, but I love it. I love the drumming. I love everything about it. It's better
weird. For me, Happy Days Toy Town is too weird.
Yeah.
And then like
my least favorite song on the
Rolling Over, while my favorite song on the album, maybe isn't weird enough for the concept. But then you get Hungry Intruder, which is right in that sweet spot of it's weird, but like it's catchy, so that makes it better. And it just puts you in a whole like, what the heck am I listening to mindset.
Yeah, my favorite song on the album will be Rolling Over. Like I said, it's their most small face song besides Afterglow. And my score, not surprising to anyone, 10 out of 10. This is a perfect. To me, this is like their perfect album. This is like their like their second and third album. Both are perfect albums to me. Their first album's great, but it's not as good. A lot better of a debut album than a certain other album by a band that I really love. But check out my video, Shameless Pug. Me and Garrett from Soundlab Studios, who covering "Stay with the Hollies."
You tortured my ears with the Candyman song.
Oh, I am sorry about that. I didn't know it was gonna be that bad for you. But yeah. Watch that album review, because that's the only Hollies album review you'll ever see me crap on the Hollies.
But, right? Yeah.
He just did In the Holly Style, and that one's a lot better. Go check out that review.
Yeah, he did. He put a comment on the video, which thank you. But
let me see if I can put a card up there for your In the Holly Style review. Should appear about now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But thank you. And yeah, do not do Stay with the Hollies because that album is crap. But
Yeah,
yeah, you're
it
gonna
has
it's funny,
potential, but
ironically, you started reviewing. You did the one album review that I hate the most, and I think you're gonna do Evolution with me, which I think is their best album. So I think
it's
that's kind
either
of
their best or their second best.
to me it's a mix up between For Certain Because and Evolution, but yeah.
It definitely has my favorite Hollies song on it.
Have you ever loved somebody?
I guess that's
Yeah.
it for today's Small Faces review. Thank you guys for coming out
Yeah.
and or turning on your computer and joining in for the discussion today. We'd like to invite you back next week for our discussion on the 1978 self-titled debut album of The Cars, which I'm really excited about reviewing. Definitely one of my favorite debut albums and one of the most perfect albums ever made. Really looking forward for the discussion on that one. I've got my vinyl copy in my record collection back here that I'm going to be showcasing instead of digitally inserting it here. That now you guys don't see it. It looks like the Small Faces, but Jason and Nick see Rush right now.
Yeah, we see Rush.
But yeah.
I want to hear Nick do more of his Geddy Lee impression. That was funny.
But that debut album isn't as perfect as the Stay with the Hollies debut album.
Oh no, trippy
with the best song of all time, Candyman.
I can't stand Rush, and the guy's voice is too high. You sing a little lower, man. Rush has maybe one good song. Trippy Hippie only likes. I can't even remember the name of it. It's the one. It's the one about the one on the first album that sounds like the metal balloon people. Yeah,
I think I know what you're talking about.
I don't even know.
But speaking of that, if there's gonna be a song you're gonna check out, Jason, like in terms of a really good song, check out the title track "Stay." That's a really good cover. And yeah, if you want to bleed your ears out, listen to Candyman, the cover on that song.
Yeah.
And it's not Candyman as in like who can make the sun shine. It's like a different
Right.
Candyman.
It's
different.
Imagine Bob Dylan like completely drunk and high singing a song.
I'm your Candyman. Something like that.
It's dreadful. It is. Like I said, they're probably like in my top 5 at least, and I cannot stand that album. I own the album because I'm a crazy completionist, but that's probably gonna be a hint that I'm probably gonna eventually own Mardi Gras.
No, I'm still thinking about buying that just as a joke. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.
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 And if you guys want that StreamYard link that I sent last time, if you want to jump over to that, if you have time, not nearly as long as we stayed last week, but maybe
Yeah.
Say,
15, 30 minutes or so.
I was to say, like, I'm not gonna stay in longer because I gotta leave soon. So yeah.
Okay.
15 minutes is good.
Yeah, like 15 minutes.
For me.